Now, most of us use a car or van to get to our riding locations, and it's definitely worth sticking a few items in your car boot. It could possibly save your day or make things a little bit more luxurious after your ride. Let's take a look at some of my favorites. Now, first up, let's talk about a few luxuries, things that can definitely make the difference. Say, for instance, if you're traveling a bit further to your riding spot than usual, or maybe going away for a few days. First up, it's going to be the trusty battery charger. Obviously, you can stick this in your riding pack and you can top your battery up maybe if you do a lunch stop at a cafe or something like that. Or possibly, if you're en route, you can get a 12-volt car inverter, meaning you can plug that battery in and top it up en route. Or if you've got a really posh van, you can actually fully charge that battery up if you've got a charging system built in. Secondly, spare tyres. Now, you never know when you might damage a tyre when you're out riding. Put slits in it that you can't repair, or maybe you arrive at your trail spot and the weather is a lot different to what you expect. Sticking a set of wet tyres on, it's going to give you a load more grip and a lot more confidence. So a spare set of wet and dry tyres can make a big difference, as can carrying a spare set of wheels. Now, I carry a spare rear wheel purely because that's the one that's in the firing line. You know, you quite easy to damage your rear wheel by not hopping it up over a rock, getting a dent in there, meaning that the tyre won't sear, or possibly getting a free hub brake, so you've got no drive to the back wheel, you've got a spare, you're definitely covered. And last on my list, and it definitely is a luxury, is going to be a few spare batteries. A spare battery can make a big difference to the range on your bike. It's also going to get rid of that range anxiety. I mean, you can double or possibly triple your fun on your next ride. But that's definitely the luxury items out of the way. Let's go and look at the essentials. Now, getting to and from the trails requires a little bit of forethought too. Couple of options here. You can take a set of clean clothes with you and get changed into them in the car park before you drive. Or what I like to run is a set of waterproof seat covers. I mean, you can just jump straight in your van or your car and get home pretty quick without making an absolute mess on the seat. Now, of course, you can sit on your riding jacket inside out, sitting on that mud side up. Or another option would be to be running blankets or anything that is just going to stop that seat getting marked up. Now, if you choose that option of getting changed at the trails either before or after your ride, something that's going to make that experience a little bit better is going to be something to step onto. Now, a cheap option would be something like a carpet tile, but if you want something a little bit more luxurious, something like this muck-off option is a great thing to be looking at. Now, this is padded, it's also waterproof, and it opens up into a nice wide base, meaning you just step into it, get changed, pull it together with that drawstring, chuck it in the back of your van, and then as soon as you get home, you can empty it into your washing machine. All done, nice and clean. Now, you're also going to need to think about protecting the rear of your car, particularly if you're carrying bikes in the back. It can make an absolute mess in there. Now, a few options, it's going to be your cheaper stuff like blankets. It's going to be a real easy way of doing it. Or maybe your van or your car has got a built-in liner already. Now, these are great for the job, but if you need to get a custom one made, they can be fairly expensive. Now, something that I found is a really good option is just going to be a cheap basic tarpaulin. Now, these are going to be waterproof, and if you put them in as a base layer, they're going to catch all that mud and water that drips from your bike. You can just whip it out and shake it off as soon as you get home and stop your car getting really messed up. Right, so that's the car all protected. I've got the tarp down in the back and got those seat covers on in the front. So with this size car, I need to whip the front wheel out to transport it. So you're gonna need a brake chock for that front wheel to stop the pads closing in. And also gonna need a blanket just to chuck over that bike. It's gonna give you a bit of protection from that front wheel, and also gonna stop that bike getting seen by prying eyes, maybe if you're gonna stop at services or something like that. And another item I like to carry is going to be a basic lock. It's not going to be the most high-tech security, but it could stop your pride and joy getting nicked by a quick smash and grab. Now, a couple of things to think about when you're chucking your bike in the back of your car. One thing is that you've got that derailleur facing up. You do not want that to be down because that could definitely get bent. And when it comes to putting your front wheel in, make sure your brake rotor is facing up towards the roof lining. That way, it's not going to get risk of contamination from your chain also, and it's going to avoid damaging that paintwork as well. Just make sure it's nice and protected, drive steady, and you shouldn't suffer any damage. Okay, so what tools and spares should you be taking along for your ride too? Now obviously I've got my day-to-day riding pack, which I have CO2 canisters in, Allen keys, multi-tools, things like that are going to help me on the trail side. But if things were to go majorly wrong, I can head back to the car, and here's a few of the essential items that I think will help you out massively. First up is going to be a tubeless pump. Now this can seat a tubeless tyre, obviously straight away in a cinch, and it's really efficient, way more efficient than the mini pump that I've got in my riding pack. Then I've got a spare chain, because as we know, e-bikes like to eat chains. And if it's not a chain that I need, I'm definitely just going to need a quick link to rejoin my snap chain. Spare gear cable in there, obviously just for gear cables, drop a seat post. Got a derailleur hanger, spare derailleur hanger should my rear mech snap off. Zip ties, now these are the ultimate when it comes to fixing all those bodges on your bikes, maybe snap tightens, things like that. A zip tie can definitely get you out of deep water. And joining zip ties has got to be gaffer tape. Now this can be really useful for even clothing, rips, things like that. And again, for fixing your bike. A first aid kit, now this is essential just to have back at your van, could help you out, you know, with deep cuts or maybe even a broken bone, or help another rider out on the trail. Now tubes is something that I carry all the time. Now as we know, tubeless is great and amazing at sealing punctures, but it's not 100% fail safe, so always have a few tubes in the back of your van just to save the day. I also like to carry some tubeless sealant too. It's quite common to burp a tyre out on the trail, or if you get a big slit in there, it could pump all that sealant out. So just making sure you're prepared for all eventualities when it comes to tubeless is a good idea. And obviously, I think if you're lucky enough to own more than one helmet, always keep the spare in your van, because I'm sure we've all been there. We've arrived at the riding spot and you've forgotten your helmet. Also like to have a mud guard just spare in the van too, meaning that you are protected if you do turn up at the trails and they're not quite as you'd expected. Great at protecting you and your bike. Now when it comes to the toolbox, I like to keep all my tools in a box I can transport between my car and my workshop at home, meaning that I've got them all nicely in one place. Now in here I've got a shock pump just to make those little minute adjustments either at the trail or back at the car, just pump up those shocks. Got some chain link pliers. Now these are an absolute dream when it comes to separating that quick link on your chain. You can do it in a matter of seconds, making that quick link actually quick rather than a faff. Just another multi-tool in there, lots of different items on there, and a proper chain tool as well, meaning that if I do snap a chain, I'm definitely going to be prepared and not faffing around with that multi-tool version. Got some spare sensor leads in here as well, and also a spare magnet kicking around in there. Now, if these were to fall off your e-bike or you snap one of those cables, it's going to be game over. They are a little pricey, but definitely worth having in there. And lower down in here, I've got some more zip ties again for bodges. Got some dry lube and some wet chain lube in there, meaning that I'm prepared for all those conditions when out and about on the trail too. Now there's a few items you may want to consider when it comes to that post-ride washing and cleanup procedure. Now if you're lucky enough to live somewhere nice and hot and dry and dusty, you can simply chuck your bike in the back of your car and drive off. But if it's plastered in mud, you can save your car from getting absolutely plastered in mud and save a bit of time when you arrive home too by doing that wash on location. Now there's a few options for cleaning your bike. Now first up is going to be a power washer, portable power washer. Now these are great, but they do come at quite a price. So I found a cheap alternative to this, and that is going to be a garden sprayer. You can just fill this up with water, pump it up, and then just spray it over your bike. Now combined with a decent bike cleaner, you know, from the likes of Muck Off, and a good stiff brush and a microfiber cloth, it's going to get most of that muck off before you get home. That waterless wash is great if you haven't got a massive coating of mud on your bike. As we know, e-bikes and water don't mix, so that is the perfect combination. And when it comes to cleaning yourself up, if you've got to pop into a shop after a ride or cleaning your hands after washing your bike, then just a simple set of wet wipes is going to do the job, and it's going to stop you from getting all those weird looks in your local supermarket. So that's all the items that I take with me out on my e-bike ride on my car boot. And there's lots more you can take with you. For instance, work stands, portable charging, you name it. But if we've left anything out that you take on your rides, get involved in the comments box down below. Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed today's video. And make sure you subscribe to the channel to make sure you're not missing out. I'm off for a ride.